What's going on, guys? Welcome to the new channel. I'm calling it Run Up the Score. Thought it's kind of a catchy, cool name, and I couldn't think of anything better. I probably have been thinking about this channel, this whole idea and concept for like 6 months, and I realized I'm just going to continue thinking about it forever until I actually start doing it. So I'm recording this video. It's going to be my top business and self-help books I read this past year, and it's also going to be some of the worst books I read, some that are really highly regarded that I didn't really like very much. That's going to be the first video. I think general topics I'm going to cover on the channel is going to be definitely some reading, books, book reviews, stuff like that. Mostly, though, I want it to be centered around building wealth, building businesses, investments, which I'm not like a super newbie at, but I would like to share some thoughts because if you guys are unaware, I have another YouTube channel. It's Keto Connect. It has nearly 1 million subscribers. Me and my wife created that one. And what I realized by doing that channel is that for the past maybe 5 years prior to starting that channel, I really struggled with my diet. And creating the channel made me more accountable. And it just like really helped in addition to helping other people with their diets, it helped my own diet, which is something I wanted to definitely improve. So I thought, why not do it with business, with building wealth, different topics like that I really care about too. So let's get into the books. And I'm kind of working on the setup here. I don't know how good the lighting is, the mic, just kind of over the course of the next month or two, this will be definitely more ironed out. So to start, I'm going to go over some of the honorable mentions for the top 5 business books I read this year. Okay, I'm going to run through these pretty quick just because this will be a long video if I don't. So The Big Short, I read it for the first time. I saw the movie a while ago. Love the movie. The books, everyone says this once they read the book. It's even better. The characters are more developed, and you just get more of the backstory and the actual numbers and stuff. Not that it really helps you improve in any way. It's not really a growth book. It's more of, it's almost like seems like a fiction book. Like you're reading it purely for enjoyment. Michael Lewis, really great writer. After I read this book, I immediately bought like 5 other of his books, which I haven't read yet. This is a fun one. It's Angel by Jason Calacanis, and I also think he has a podcast, which I haven't listened to. This is about the idea of just being an angel investor, which is a pretty popular concept these days. So his kind of whole theory on things is you want to be taking a lot of shots, maybe put like 5 to 25, I mean, depending how much money you have, maybe put $5,000 to $25,000 in a number of different ideas, maybe 10 up to 50 different ideas. Over a long enough timeline, the ROI on those is going to far exceed what you could do in like the stock market or in building your own personal business. He's invested in like Uber, in I forget what else he invested in, but like a lot of companies that really hit it big. The thing with this is I was always questioning as I went through this. I was like, is this stuff still really actionable? I feel like there's kind of been an angel investing gold rush since he found his success. So I'm wondering how attainable these results really are. Since reading the book, I have done a little bit of angel investing. I'm invested in 2 different companies now at this point. The results still to be seen, so I'll let you know how those go. And then these books kind of blend together for me. It's Intelligent Fanatics and 100 Baggers. This one's by Ian Castle and Sean Eidings, who I actually read. I'm a member of the forum that Ian Castle has. It's called the Microcap Club. It's about investing in micro cap stocks, like really small market cap stocks, under 300 million market cap. And there's a lot of good info on there. This book basically chronicles intelligent fanatics, which is people that owner-operators that build their business over the long term. You could think kind of like Jeff Bezos probably fits into that category. Sam Walton. There's a few more obscure people that he talks about in this book that I've never heard of. The CEO and founder of Southwest Airlines was another one. Just you get in the mind of these people that build businesses for the long term, like the long game. And then this one is just stocks that 100x'd and the common characteristics of those. A couple other notable examples were like Monster Energy Drink, Amazon. It's cool to just kind of see what the common characteristics are. And it's kind of the conclusion I came to is there isn't a lot of common characteristics. There's definitely some things you can kind of monitor to give yourself a better shot. But really cool read. It's one of my goals now to achieve 100 bagger. It seems really hard, My biggest bagger so far is 2. I got a 2 bagger in the books. And these are all the honorable mentions again. This is one I've been wanting to read for a while because it's a really prominent investing book, One Up on Wall Street by Peter Lynch, who's he did like the Magellan Fund, I think it was. Had like incredible returns over the course of 20 years. I think like best there was in Wall Street for 20 years. And the major takeaway from this book is just invest in what you know. And that actually happens to me my biggest returning investment, which is Upwork, which is a company I use to run my business basically every day. It is definitely true, the concept in this book, like if you're a user of the company you're investing in, you know why it's good, you know why it's better than the alternatives. Like for me, I was looking at 2 stocks, for example, Upwork and Fiverr. They're both the same thing. It's kind of like a freelancing service. And to me, it was like a no-brainer. Like Upwork's going to be the company that wins out in the long run. But when I looked at the earnings and the market cap of the 2 different stocks, it was priced that Fiverr was a premium to Upwork. And I thought that was definitely wrong. That led to being my best investment so far. So I definitely sort of agree with this book, but it's like, if you invest in what you know these days, you're just kind of buying like Netflix, Amazon, and it's like, I don't know if that's really a great strategy personally, but there's something to what he's saying for sure, especially for more of a layman. This is more of a layman's book. If you're at all adept at investing, I wouldn't say it's really an essential read. And then the last honorable mention is this one. It's Sam Walton, Made in America. Really the most personal business biography I've ever read. It's written in like a tone that you would expect from some Southerner from Arkansas who built a business, who loves retailing. And it's really just like firsthand accounts. You get all the gritty details of everything. It's inspiring. It makes you want to work harder. And it really, throughout the course of the book, you can understand why he's successful. Like the only thing he really cares about, he doesn't care about the money as much. And this is what you'll learn when you read enough business biographies, is the money's never the primary motivator and objective. It's always like the secondary thing. It comes with the success of the primary motivator, which in this case, it was just like being in love with retailing and wanting to be the best retailer. I don't think there's too much objection. Walmart obviously is that. So pretty cool story, and it gets you motivated just on wanting to be better at your own business, just wanting to develop some level of mastery. And before we get into the top 5, I'm going to go into some disappointments. I actually think I only got 2 really disappointing books this year. The first one is Rework. It's basically sort of like a work smarter, not harder concept, redefining what work is. Overall, to me, it was a super lazy book. Like I haven't read a book this lazy in a long time. No real thought put into it. It's just like, if you've read a handful of business books, there's literally nothing new in this. Like a little bit of an excerpt. Meetings are toxic. The worst interruptions of all are meetings. Here's why. They're usually about words and abstract concepts, not real things. They usually convey an abysmally small amount of information per minute. It's just like, are you coming up with this stuff on your own? Or like everyone kind of knows that. Everyone's heard that meetings suck by now. I don't think like this book, it just didn't really make sense to me. It kind of sums up all the cliches about business that you've heard a million times by now in a really lazy and boring format. I wouldn't recommend it. And then this one I think people are going to be mad about. Atomic Habits by James Clear. And I didn't know this, but this has been the New York Times #1 best-selling nonfiction book for a long time, like months and months now. And I don't understand. I honestly don't get it. So many people, though, have told me. Like yesterday I put an Instagram story up, what's your #1 productivity tip? And a lot of people were like, just read Atomic Habits by James Clear. And maybe it's because I have read a handful of like habit forming books in the past. The books aren't habit forming, but they teach you how to form good habits. And to me, this one, it was sort of just a reiteration of things I've read before. It definitely goes into some cool concepts and it presents it more in like a sciencey way. But I think you need like one habit book in your life probably, and I already read, I think it's called The Power of Habit or something. Yeah, I think it's called The Power of Habit. I read that book a couple years ago, and to me it's almost identical. So I would say if you're totally new and you're trying to form habits, you would probably really like this book. If you have experience reading books like this, even any of these like business style books, it's not really bringing anything new to the table. Okay, now we're going to get into the top 5, but it actually looks like I got 7 here. So it's the top 7. I'm going to go in reverse order from my least favorite to my favorite. Actually, I'm going to group some of these together. So I'm going to just do a top 5. My number 5 book is going to be Getting Things Done by David Allen. This is one I've been wanting to get to for a while. It's a little too comprehensive, but what it is it tells you how to put a system in place where you get a lot of things done, like the title says. So what that entails generally is idea capture, basically how you go from idea capture, like an idea, to a finished executed idea, an executed product. If you think about it, a lot of people have ideas. It's really the execution that's the hard part. So a couple of key takeaways that I, since reading this book about 9 months ago, I still implement in my daily life. Number 1, idea capture. So it could be, he recommends doing pen and paper, which to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense because I wouldn't just carry a notebook around with me. A lot of people do that. But I use an app. It's called Todoist. You can see on the homepage of my phone right here, add task. And then I just type my idea in and it immediately goes to my Todoist inbox, which I then sort through later. And I can also assign different ideas to different team members. And just the whole idea of idea capture is crucial because when you're laying in bed at night, you can't fall asleep. You're thinking about all these ideas. Just take them out of your head, put them down somewhere. And then you're not thinking, your brain's not as scattered. And then another thing from the book I tried implementing, I didn't really like how it worked out for me, was this idea of you have your to-do list. It's a long to-do list, and you categorize it based on location or tool that you need to get the actual to-do list item done. So, for example, you could have computer, you could have phone, you could have car, like if you're out on the town type of a thing, different locations for getting things done. So then when you're in one of those locations, you just sort by the location and then you just start working through your to-do list. That doesn't work for me. I've found that just being a little bit more loose with my organization works best for me, where this book, Getting Things Done by David Allen, is really structured. Too structured for me, but I think the general concepts are really good. And that is why it's number 5 for me. Next up, we have, I'm into real estate. I have a few rental properties. This book was deceptive because I read the title and I was like, you can't time the real estate market. Like you're not supposed to time markets. So that's general, like rule number 1 is you don't time markets. The title is not exactly representative of what's in the book. It actually has a lot of really good, I read 4 or 5 real estate books this year. This is the one I would recommend. It gives you a lot of tips on what to look for, how to sort of crunch the numbers, back of the envelope math on how to decide if you want to buy something. It tells you about the trends you should be looking for to try to time, or not even time though, but just at least be aware of the economic cycle. So the 7 major trends he says are to monitor is inflation, interest rates, flow of funds, which is kind of a tough one to monitor, but you want to monitor the flow of funds into the market, the stock market, the real estate market. And then those were the national trends you want to monitor. And then there's 4 local trends you want to monitor: job growth, in or out migration, the area you live, are more people moving in or more people moving out, path of progress. This is something a lot of people, this is the number 1 thing most people think of when they're investing in real estate. They see that there's like a cool area of a city and they want to be like where the cool area is going to move to next. And it tends to work kind of in a clockwise direction around the city center, usually in most cities. So just kind of being aware of the path of progress. And then new construction, the amount of new homes being built in the area, where they're being built. It's really a lot to monitor. This is more like if you're trying to do this full time type of a thing. It's definitely good to have some of this knowledge and to go back and look when you're thinking about buying a property or something. Overall, this is a really good real estate book, the best real estate book I read this year. Okay, this isn't really making sense now because I have books that shouldn't be grouped together, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, these 2, I guess, will be tied for number 3. The Everything Store, which is sort of a Jeff Bezos Amazon biography almost. It's the first real writer that was given some sort of access to Jeff Bezos to write a book. This book came out, I think, 2014? It says 2014. Amazing book. Takes you into the mindset, the goods and the bads. Most people, when they hear Amazon these days, they have an immediate reaction. It's either, oh, I love Amazon, or I hate Amazon. They're taking over the world. Jeff Bezos is too rich. This just gives a pretty measured perspective. It takes you back to the roots on what it takes to build a crazy, huge company like this from the ground up. takes you kind of into his mindset. It goes through all of like the unethical stuff where they're cutting margins and they're like squeezing people out of different product lines. There's some real shady stuff they did, but it kind of takes you almost to realize like you gotta, squeeze a few lemons to make lemonade, crack a few eggs to make an omelet. That's sort of the mindset that Jeff Bezos definitely has. Like, and I think with most rich, super wealthy, successful businessmen, they're willing to lie, cheat, and steal to some degree. Like for the most part, they're definitely, doing good things. You have to do good things to make tons of money. But also, where possible, you're going to cut some corners, lie, cheat, and steal if necessary too. And it seems like Jeff Bezos kind of falls into that category. And then the other one was pretty cool. This one is by Farnham Street, which I started listening to their podcast a little bit. The podcast is called The Knowledge Project with Shane Parrish. And that's what led me to this book. And it is all about mental models, how to think about the world. Just make your brain work better to have an advantage over other people, basically. So there's 2 volumes to this book, and it walks you through the great mental models. And I haven't gotten the second one yet, but I'm definitely going to read that one too. Here's a little example of some of the mental models. Circle of competence. We've all kind of heard of that. Invest in things that you're familiar with. You know how they work. Don't venture too far outside of your circle of competence. First principles thinking and second principles thinking. This was really interesting to me because I think so many of our decisions, especially politically, are made on first principles thinking. And we don't think about the outcomes that will be generated by the outcomes of the primary decision. So it's like a second tier level of thought. Like one good example from the book was in India. They gave awards or they gave a monetary reward for bringing in king cobras. And it was because there was a lot of people dying from king cobra bites, apparently. And so that's the first principle thinking, right? It's like, we're going to pay anyone who brings in a dead king cobra. And I didn't even think about this, but what do you think happened? If you start doing second principles thinking, you'll realize, people are going to start breeding king cobras and killing them and turning them into the authorities, which is what happened. And then there's probabilistic thinking, which is just, kind of thinking in probabilities, which is pretty obvious. Occam's razor, which is the simplest solution, is usually the right one. And then Hanlon's razor, which I got to freshen up on that. I forget what Hanlon's razor was. But yeah, just real cool running your mind through these different models, thinking about the ones that you're pretty aware of and the ones that you've never really heard of before and kind of contemplating those. And then this one was a super sneaky book here. I'm going to put it at number 2. And how scammy and gimmicky does the cover of this book sound? Totally. Sometimes I like to throw books like this in where I'm like, there's no way this is going to make sense to me because, I consider myself to be somewhat sophisticated, and anything where it's like, the super laws of how I turned 46K into 6.8 million in 28 months. I'm like, that's too good to be true. That doesn't exist. That's my first thought. And this book was written by Jesse C. Stein, who apparently has receipts for all of the claims he made in this book, which is that he, as a trader, and he uses the term trader kind of differently. Most people think of trader, they think of a day trader, like someone who won't even stay in a position overnight. What he talks about when he's saying trading is more momentum trading. So typically he would hold stocks for like 6 to 18 months, somewhere in that range, and he would capture a big 200 to 2,000% move over that time. So he's holding it a little bit longer. And it makes sense to me. And the one thing going into this book, I was pretty much dismissing technical analysis altogether. Like, I understand the idea basically that the stock chart is human emotion and psychology mapped onto a chart. I get that. I can appreciate that. But I think drawing lines and Fibonacci sequences and all that stuff, I was kind of just like, that doesn't make sense. Like, you should mostly be doing fundamental analysis. He is a proponent of the chart matters more, but the fundamentals you also have to look into. I'm still definitely of the opposite mindset after reading this book, but he gives you really cool approaches, lots of charts in this book of what to look for. Breakouts, he's big on like looking for breakouts, and kind of what he says to really distill it down to an easy to understand formula. Clues in the earnings reports that hint at potential future growth, or like say there's a company that has a good earnings. They beat their earnings estimates. Say it was supposed to be like 20 cents. They did 35 cents. First thing you want to do is like, how did that happen? Is it a one-time thing? And then you want to look at, is this something that the management thinks is going to keep happening? Because usually in those type of earnings reports, you'll get a quick jump on a big volume in the stock, and then it'll kind of trail off. And that's when he says you want to be buying if you think the estimates or the future earnings are going to be similar. To me, though, this is just, I don't like owning things that I don't believe in the long-term prospects of. So that's why I don't love all of his ideas. But overall, this book was definitely pretty cool. It opened my eyes to a lot of things. Oh, and there's a really good chapter in it where he talks about financial media and how financial media is written with a motive. And when you're reading the front page of the Wall Street Journal, for an example, you don't want to be reading the story and thinking like, oh, how do I act on this and make money? Because the money from that story has already been made. Like, it's priced in at that point. They're trying to influence you to act in a certain way. So you want to be sort of doing the opposite. Or like if you see on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, for example, solar energy is the new frontier, the new gold rush, the green gold rush. That's a signal to you that the gold rush is over. Like you're too late. And I think that's really good advice. And then last up, the number one set of books, very similar concepts in these two books. Traction by Gino Wickman and Measure What Matters by John Doerr. The key concept in both of these books is sort of the concept of KPIs, key performance indicators. You want to give people on your team and yourself and your organization as a whole a number to shoot for and constantly improve. Like, what is the number that if you told yourself this number was this in a year's time, that would indicate your business was either more successful or less successful. So for my business, KetoConnect.net, it's really the daily and monthly page views, how many people are visiting our website. That's the biggest indicator of success for my business. And then you want to also break it down to KPIs for each individual person. So for me, being kind of the overseer of the whole operation, I think it should be the page views. For someone who's a content writer, it could be producing X amount of posts per week. Or it could also be their posts generating X amount of page views. It depends how you really want to structure it. But everyone should have a number. Everyone on your team should have one magic number that they're reaching for. If they hit those numbers, your business grows. If they don't hit those numbers, your business shrinks. And then you should monitor those numbers really strictly. And anytime they veer off course, you should course correct. That's really like the only thing that stuck with me from these books, but it's so important and it's something that I hadn't been doing before that I'm just sort of implementing now that I think is going to make a big improvement on things. But yeah, guys, that's the video. Those are the top 5. Let me know if you've read any of these. If you have other business books I should read. Keep in mind, this is only the books that I read this year. So some books that are just, all-time greats that would make this list if I read them this year would be like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Mastery by George Leonard. What other ones? Richest Man in Babylon. I've read a lot of business books, but if you have one that's maybe a little more obscure that I probably haven't read, let me know down below. And yeah, guys, let me know what kind of videos you want to see on this channel. I'm excited to get going. I'm also going to be doing a lot of videos, hopefully, on how to build a business the way that we built Keto Connect, because I know a lot of people, especially in these times, they're stuck at home. Maybe they got laid off. They're looking for ways to make money on the internet. You've probably heard that before. Work from home, make millions. So I hope that I can help some of you guys do that. Thanks for watching.